Don Quixote, Doflamingo, the heavenly demon, the puppet master, the man the entire fandom has collectively agreed is the greatest evil mastermind to ever set sail. We've spent a decade thinking he was playing 4D chess while everyone else was playing checkers. But I'm here to tell you that we've all been scammed. When you actually strip away the cool shades, the pink feathers, and that walk that makes him look like he's permanently trying to find a bathroom, you're left with the most overrated strategist in One Piece. Doflamingo didn't build an empire because he was a genius. He built it because he was the luckiest guy in the new world. But he took over Dressrosa in such a masterful way. Yeah, he had a good weekend 10 years ago, but everything before and since then, it's a masterclass in how to turn a winning hand into a total disaster. And a quick disclaimer, I'm not here to tell you Doflamingo is a bad character, because he's not. He's one of the best villains in the entire story. He's the perfect mix of charisma, arrogance and terrifying presence. However, I am here to tell you that his mastermind reputation is a total myth. Let's start from the very beginning. When we talk about a great pirate captain, we're talking about a leader who had to go out in the world, prove their worth and assemble a crew through sheer charisma or strength. Luffy had to earn the respect of every single Straw Hat. Whitebeard built a family from orphans and outcasts. But Doflamingo didn't build a crew, he was gifted one. Doflamingo is essentially the child actor of the One Piece world. He didn't struggle in the indie scenes of a weak sea. He was discovered by a talent agent named Treble, who saw a kid with haki and thought, yeah, I can market that. Think about it. At age 10, Doflamingo was at his absolute lowest point, crying on a heap of trash, hunted by commoners, and having a mental breakdown. Most kids in that position would be lucky to find a warm meal. Doflamingo found a silver platter. Treble walks up and doesn't just offer him a hand. He hands him a top-tier devil fruit, a loaded gun, and a pre-made council of 4 executives who were already experienced. Treble, Diamante, Pika and Virgo were already a formidable squad. They didn't follow Doflamingo because he outsmarted them or beat them in a fight. They only followed him because of his kingly will. He had Conqueror's haki. They didn't want a captain. They wanted a mascot they could turn into a god. You know, just like when you go for a walk and you see some kid bully and you decide to worship him for the rest of your life. We've all done that, right? Actually, if anyone should have credit for Doflamingo's success, it's Treble. He found him, groomed him, and set him up for success. Doflamingo didn't have to be a genius to lead these people. He just had to be the most hateful person in the room, which to be fair, he's very good at. But let's not mistake being a brat for being a mastermind. You might argue that other pirates were handed things. Luffy stumbled upon the Nika fruit, but that's about the only thing he got. Everything else he had to fight for. Doflamingo was being spoon-fed an empire by 4 weirdos who would literally burn down an entire town because he tripped on the pavement. But this is not the only thing that points to his lack of genius. For a man who calls himself a puppet master, Doflamingo is remarkably bad at noticing when his own strings are being pulled. Doffy spent years living with his brother, Rociante, and never realized he was a spy. The master of psychology spent half a decade eating dinner with a man who was sabotaging his operations and pretending to be mute. And he never once thought it was suspicious. Man, you shot his father in front of him. He then vanished for 14 years, came back, and now he can't talk all of a sudden. Surely he's a totally loyal subordinate. He was so blinded by his own ego that he missed a betrayal staring him right in the face. Doflamingo had the Opiopinomie, the literal key to immortality within his reach, and he lost it because he got outplayed by a dying 10-year-old and a man who couldn't walk across a room without setting himself on fire. I don't mean to disrespect Corazon, by the way. I love that guy. People might say, but he caught them. He ended Corazon's life and he beat Law later. That's a win. No, that's just damage control. If a thief steals your car and you catch him a week later, you're still the guy who forgot to lock his car. But the thing I see people give Doflamingo credit for the most is that he was the master of the Underworld. I might have to shatter that perception. If you're the king of the Underworld, you should be the one holding all the cards. But Doflamingo, he was basically a high-stakes delivery driver with the world's scariest boss breathing down his neck. His entire business model was a suicide note. He positioned himself as the middleman between Caesar Clown, a rogue scientist who is functionally insane, and Kaido, a man who flattens islands when he's grumpy and tries to end his own life as a hobby. This isn't masterminding an underworld. It's putting your head in a lion's mouth and hoping it doesn't get a toothache. Doflamingo created a single point of failure for his entire life. If something happens to Caesar, like getting kidnapped, Doflamingo can't make sad. If he can't make sad, he can't give Kaido his smile fruits. And if Kaido doesn't get them, Doflamingo becomes a pink smear on the pavement. But wait, you might say, he wasn't stupid. He assigned Virgo as an enforcer and Monet as a spy to watch Caesar. He had layers of protection. That might actually make it worse. If your business is so fragile that you have to send one of your most trusted, high-ranking childhood friends to go live in a frozen wasteland just to babysit one unreliable idiot, you don't have a good business. Think about the resource drain. Virgo, a vice admiral and his most valuable mole in the navy, and Monet, a loyal executive, were both tied up on babysitter duty for a long time. And to top it all off, they both died as a result of this mission. He wasted some of his best assets on a defensive play because he rented his future to a guy who experiments on children for fun. A real genius has a backup plan for when the lab gets blown up. Doflamingo spent the entire Dressrosa arc in a state of panic, because he knew that if the Smile Factory stopped, his life was over. That's not a king ruling the Underworld. That's a middleman with a very high-stress job and zero exit strategy. And then we got the peak of Doflamingo's insanity. Doflamingo's entire 10-year reign, his status, his kingdom, and his secrets depended entirely on one person, Sugar. Now to be fair, Sugar isn't actually a child. She's 22 years old. Her aging was frozen by her devil fruit. But physically, she's a tiny, vulnerable girl, and Doflamingo decided to make her the single pillar holding his entire empire up. Think about the stakes here. The second Sugar loses consciousness, whether she gets knocked out, has a heart attack, or just gets scared half to death, as we saw happen, the spell breaks. 10 years of crimes against humanity are instantly undone. Thousands of toys turn back into humans with their memories intact. Right in the middle of the city. It's not just a leak, it's a total collapse of his reality. And what was his genius plan to protect her? Quite nothing. He let her wander around like any of his other officers in a toy house where any random accident could end his reign. If Down these stairs had claimed Sugar as his next victim, the birdcage would have had to go up years ago. And if you say he only got unlucky that the Stride showed up, no, not even when he invited powerful fighters from all around the world to fight for Alogia did he think to consider increasing the budget for Sugar security. If Doflamingo was the strategist people claim he is, he wouldn't have left his entire kingdom vulnerable to a single jump scare. He needed the toys for labor as well, so why not secure it? Why keep them in the middle of your civilian capital? He has a fleet. He could have moved the Smile Factory and the toy labor to a desolate island. If Sugar faints on a private island guarded by top officials, the truth stays on that island. By keeping them in Dressrosa, he ensured that a single mistake would turn his own citizens against him. And if he needed to keep them in Dressrosa, why not keep them away from everything else in a tightly guarded building on the edge of the kingdom, instead of the middle of everything? He assigned Treble as Sugar's only guard. He had Pika, who can merge with entire islands. A real genius would have Sugar rent an apartment inside of Pika's body, or at least be guarded by someone other than Treble. I mean, she even hates him, but who wouldn't? Imagine being followed by that guy all day. Doflamingo chose the most aesthetic option, keeping the toys in the streets to maintain the illusion of a happy kingdom. He built a nuclear power plant and let the self-destruct button walk around with a bowl of grapes wherever it pleased. This leads us to the grand finale, the birdcage. Some people talk about this move like it's Doflamingo's ultimate trump card, and if used correctly, it definitely could have been. In reality, it was a massive I give up sign. The moment Sugar fainted and the toys reverted, Doflamingo's house of cards didn't just fall, it vaporized. 10 years of secrets were out, and he was officially backed into a corner. Now a true mastermind in that position tries to salvage the situation. He's a warlord with the highest political ties in the world. He could have attempted to frame the toy transformation as some freak accident, and blackmailed the world government once again to go along with that story. Instead he panicked. He dropped the act of being a king and reverted back to that angry 10-year-old on the trash heap. By activating the birdcage, he didn't solve his problem. He escalated it to a point of no return. He effectively locked himself in a room with a Marine Admiral, the Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, and the Straw Hat crew. Before the birdcage, Fujitora was playing a waiting game, looking for a reason to dismantle the warlord system. By trying to massacre an entire kingdom of civilians in broad daylight, Doflamingo didn't just give Fujitora a reason, he forced his hand. He ensured that even if he won the fight, his life as a warlord and a king was over. There is no going back to normal after you try to put the whole population transformation in a meat grinder. But in my opinion, this makes him a better villain. This isn't the move of a genius, it's the move of a high-functioning psychopath. It shows that beneath the puppet master persona, Doflamingo is just a man-child who would rather burn the entire country down than admit he lost. He isn't a mastermind, he's a force of nature that destroys everything he touches, including his own empire. In the end, Doflamingo didn't only lose because Luffy was stronger, though Gear 4 definitely helped. He lost because he was never as smart as he thought he was. He was a man who spent his whole life trying to prove he was a god, only to prove he was just as messy, impulsive and self-destructive as the human trash he despised.